Welcome to Forefathers, the space where we have real conversations about manhood, mentorship, and the lessons we learn, not just from what's said, but from what we see. I'm your host, Gareth Ruswa, and this podcast was born from a simple yet powerful realization. Most of us were never directly taught how to be men. We watched, we observed, and we figured things out on our own. But is that enough? And more importantly, what do young men need to thrive today? This platform is here to fill a gap. While women have had empowering movements that equip them with tools to navigate our evolving world, young men often find themselves without clear guidance. The old rulebook on masculinity doesn't fully apply anymore, yet there's no new playbook either. That's where this podcast comes in, to share real experiences, to learn from one another, and to redefine what it means to be a man in today's world. This isn't just another conversation about manhood. It's a space for real stories, real experiences, and real lessons that can help us all grow. If you've ever wondered how to navigate relationships, your career, fatherhood, or just becoming the best version of yourself, then this podcast is for you. For our very first episode, I've invited some friends to the show. Men who, just like me, have had their own journey of learning and unlearning and figuring things out. We're going to talk about the lessons we absorbed from our fathers or role models, what being a man really means today, and what's missing when it comes to guiding young men in 2025 and beyond. Like I said, I'm not doing this alone. With me are two incredible guests who will be sharing their own experiences. Nigel, Dominic, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
First of all, bro, well done. Congratulations on starting this thing. I feel excited and privileged to be on the first episode. My name is Dominic, and yeah, thanks.
First of all, thank you for having me, Gareth. I appreciate you for including us in this space, which I feel like is quite fundamental in society, as not a lot of men have outlets where they can just express themselves and talk about matters that have to do with our manhood and masculinity and how we transcend from being boys to being men and just learning about the principles. So I resonate quite deeply with the purpose and the theme of the podcast, and I'm excited to see what we can discuss on today.
Perfect. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. I think the first thing that we can dive into is I'd just like to know more about your experience from transitioning from being a boy to becoming a man. So, with that, I want to know, in what ways did you learn from your father or role model? Was it through direct teachings, observation, or a mix of both?
So basically, in my experience, I learned a lot from my father through observation. Just seeing how he navigated through life, how he navigated through his obstacles, and just when he got his successes, how he handled that, and just in general, like how he managed to navigate life on his own. I mean, there's times where he sat me down and we had discussions on how to do things and how to be disciplined, just general life principles. But most of the things I learned from seeing what he did in life, his day-to-day interactions with his colleagues, in the church, with the family. And obviously from that, you get to have a perspective of how to navigate things as a man and some of the things that are required of you. So it was mostly through observation. Yeah.
Okay, got you. And thank you for that. I think just to build on that, we start to notice that we all have similarities. So if you're a boy or a man, if you speak to other men, you'll start to notice that a lot of us were not directly taught how to be men, right? We kind of figured things out by watching and observing our fathers or the men that were present in our lives, right? But you start to notice that there's a missing piece there from the let's sit down, let's discuss what the next stage of your life looks like. You're currently 13, you're currently 16, this is what's going to happen next, etc., etc. Kind of like having a guide. Yes, of course, people want to justify this by saying men learn by watching, but we only learn by watching because that's all that was available. We didn't have a vessel or a person who was directly coaching us and guiding us through this process. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think I can pass that same question to you, Dominic. In what ways did you learn from your father or role model? Was it through direct teachings, observations, or a mix of both?
A mix of both. But before I answer, the part you spoke about, the transition part, there's actually never a stage in life where you feel as if you're getting into manhood. It's more of uh, you do something, and then it's clear that from the reaction or how it's received by everyone else that this is expected from you or not. And that could be maybe the lessons that I received from my dad by talking to me. Maybe I did something. Maybe I'm a 13-year-old boy and I'm doing something that maybe I'm my age right now, but I'm trying to be going out and partying, or just not taking life serious and being more organized than I should be. And I do something and it's received by my dad and he calls me up like, hey, this is not how you're supposed to do certain things. Which is, I think, not even I think, but it was maybe the least of the channel in which I got taught by my dad, and more was observing, like Nigel did as well. And and a lot of these things, you see your dad doing certain things and interacting, engaging with other people, and only in when life is happening to you, when you have to make a decision, only when you saw your dad doing something, then you be like, oh, maybe that's how it should be done. So a lot of it is observing, and only vocalized when you've done something that is not expected of you, or for you to know that this is wrong or right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you raised something that's quite important, that the vocalization of a lesson only takes place when something wrong has happened, right? And what if, as people say, prevention is better than cure? What if the child starts to understand the expectations of him earlier on? Then we're only going to sit him down when he does something wrong. And I think that's where we have to evolve as, we're going to be, fathers. And maybe that's something that we can apply with our kids, not only sitting him down if he's done something wrong, but sitting him down to coach him intentionally. So also, me personally, that's something that was prevalent in my life, that the sit down would only come if a mistake has happened. It was never like, let's sit down, let's discuss your next steps, the expectations, etc., etc. It was when something wrong has happened, that's when we would address it. And thank you for sharing that. Is there any?
Yeah. So let's say, like your take, which I think, yeah, uh, mm, prevention is always better than dealing with the issue at hand. How do you think uh, a man or a father or a figure would approach that situation, and when is the right time? And what sort of lesson exactly? Okay, are you saying, okay, puberty at 18, then a dad should be prompted to go and tell his son an array of lessons?
I think firstly to describe to the boy what is expected of him. So he has a clear understanding that, okay, this is my role. This is what's expected from me within the family. This is what's expected from me within the community. This is what I'm supposed to do, right? So if there's that clear understanding, then he has purpose. He knows that, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm operating according to, in harmony with the community, right? I'm adding value to the community, and I add value by doing this and that. And this is what I shouldn't do, right? As an example, if we're speaking about a 13-year-old boy, then maybe you can sit him down and start making him understand some of the responsibilities that he has at home, right? If he's now 16, maybe you can start speaking to him about the biological things that are now taking place, right? We all know how awkward the sex talk is, right? Maybe it's something that can be intentionally had, and you speak to the child so he understands that. You speak to the child about how important it is for him to build a tribe, to build a clan. That's his friends, right? It's important for you to have certain values. It's important for you to have integrity. It's important for you to be a man of your word. That's what being a man means. It's important for you to respect yourself and others, teaching him those lessons that he doesn't have to then go into the world without knowing himself. Because what we now notice is there's young men or boys who are going into the world without knowing themselves, and that's risky, because now you're at risk of someone telling you who you are, because your father never intentionally told you who you are, your values, etc., etc. Sometimes the family might not perform that role in the assumption that the school will teach my child how to be a man, or the church will teach my child how to be a man, or these other institutions. But we need some accountability within the family to say, okay, whose role is it? And that will lead me on to the next question, if there's no other additions to the first question.
No, not to the
Cool.
first question.
So just moving on to the next question, we've spoken quite deeply about how we all learned from our fathers and from the males that were present within our lives. The next question now would be: do you think that it should be a father's sole responsibility to teach a boy how to be a man? If yes, why? And if no, why? I think we can start with you, Dominic.
Sole responsibility, no, because your community, other men in your community, and the people that you're around definitely do have uh, a lot into saying in the person that you're going to be. But he probably is going to, he not even probably, he should be the one that's going to set up that foundation of a very high level of who we are and what we think of things, how we carry ourselves, and so forth. And from there, you then carry yourself into the community where you even learn even more information from everyone else and other men. Um, so I'd say your father is probably, he sets the base, and you take that base, you carry it, and you're going to receive a lot more input from the people that you're around, other men, other fathers. Um, yeah, not solely. Uh,
So basically, what you're saying is the father is the center of it. He's the one who creates the foundation.
Sure.
But much as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. There's other influences that will come into the boy's life that will influence him or teach him or mentor him into how to become a man.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go into the community with the gospel that my dad has given me of how Dominic should behave and carry himself in the community. And that's how I will talk to people and convey what it is that we believe. But also that then gives me an opportunity to interrogate what my dad has put upon me. Why? I think it's just human. It's human for me to, at some stage, to ask, why is it my dad wants me to talk to elderly or people like this in a certain way? What's the value of that? And that's what you get. Then you start, I guess, validating what your dad has said. And once, and a lot of the times, I think a good dad will always set a good foundation, and the feedback that you get from everyone around you kind of uh, puts a stone, makes it rock solid. That, okay, yeah, no, my dad was right. This, you should work hard. You should not lie, and you should be a man of integrity and treat women in a certain way. Um, so foundation, and then you go out to you, I guess, to you go out to everyone else to kind of show yourself what your family's about and what it is being a man in your family, as well as to interrogate why we have said that this is what it is to be a man in.
Gotcha. All right, just moving on to you, Nigel, just in terms of do you feel that it should be the sole responsibility of the father to teach the boy how to be a man?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. I'd say, I wouldn't say sole responsibility. I'd probably say responsibility of the father to at least ground, like, give the son some form of grounding, instill discipline, principles. Like we say, the premise starts at home. How a child is grown, how a child develops starts from the stuff that they learn at home. So essentially, we're saying the father is the one that instills, these values, aspect of, discipline, or, just these, the values and norms of how to be in society as a man, and how to transcend into, well, from a boy, and how to transcend into manhood, basically. So I'd say, yeah, the father's role is not the sole responsibility, but he does have a responsibility because it takes a village to raise a man, basically. There's different stakeholders in the community that can help. You can get mentors. Even the security guard at the gate can actually instill values in you, more, actually values, even more values than your own father instilled in you as well. So I'm like saying, so there's different people that can contribute to like how you grow in life as well. So basing from my experience, I'd say, yeah, there's different stakeholders that have shaped me. My father has had a fundamental role in how I've turned out, but then there's also a lot of people within society that have, helped as well.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, guys. And I think what we're seeing is that there's a general consensus about how the boy is taught to be a man. The father is the central figure in creating the foundation and the lessons that this boy child grows up with, right? And then when he goes into the world, there's various other influences, some good, some bad, right, that are going to influence and shape the man that he's going to become. And what then happens is, with the outside influence now coming into the child's life, he's now able to interrogate, oh, okay, this is what was said about manhood at home, but am I able to validate it, or should I question it? To your point, and again, to your point as well, that there's a lot of stakeholders involved in this process, but the father should take the accountability and take the lead responsibility of teaching this boy how to be a man. Now, just moving on to the second question, and this is something that I'm quite excited about, because I think you can learn so much from each other based on the lessons we were all taught. And the question being, what are the most impactful lessons you absorbed from your father or male figure, and how have they shaped you into the man you are today?
I'd say one of the most fundamental lessons I've learned from the male figures in my life and my father would be chasing your dreams, chasing your goals. My father, he is a very goal-oriented individual. Once he sets a goal for himself, a target, he makes sure that he attains it, regardless of the circumstances that are going on. He makes sure that when what he puts his mind to, he actually, does it. So from a young age, I could observe this, and for me, it's become a fundamental aspect of my life, because I set goals and targets for myself, and I try by all means to achieve them. I feel like I can't navigate life without a specific target, specific goal in mind. And I learned that from just observing how my father did it. I mean, he didn't sit me down to be like, to teach me and say, now, this is how you do, like set your goals and targets, whatever. But you just observe from how he navigates life and how he did it on his own. So, and the male figures in my life have contributed so much, in the sense that they've taught me how to be just to embrace community, embracing people for who they are and what they contribute to your life, because everyone has something to add to your life. And that's one of the things I learned from, I'd say, my older brother. He was like very much into the community, interacted with people a lot, and made sure that he left some form of value everywhere he went. And I took that from him as well, in the sense that every individual from every walk of life will have something that will, shape you, and something that, some form of lesson you can learn from that as well. So it just teaches you to be well versed within the community, and make sure that from every interaction you have with someone, you take something, of value, and you leave something as well, because at the end of the day, the goal is to fill each other's cups and learn something together. So that's something I've learned so much from, like, the male figures in my life, and from my friends too. Those are also male figures in your life, because you share ideas, you share goals, you share visions, and just sitting down and just sharing your problems, sharing your ideas, and discussing, how far you can go as a person. I think that's very pivotal, because those are the pillars of a man's life. You go from community to family to your friendships, and I believe those systems shape how you become as a person. So I've learned a lot from those relationships in my life.
Thank you. That's quite profound. Goal chasing and contributing to the community, and as well as your tribe, your friends, end up shaping who you are as a man. Thank you for that. And then passing that on to you, Dominic, what are the most impactful lessons you learned from your father or a male figure, and how have they shaped your journey into manhood?
Jeez, hey, my dad's done a lot. One thing that I like about my dad, besides relentlessness and working hard, is um, whenever we're driving, whenever we're driving to wherever we're going to go see family. He takes time for example, what we're talking about before, to tell me what my surname means. Oh, first, we'll just start off by who we're going to see and why we're going to see them and the relationship we have with those people. And it will go to back to as what my surname means, where I come from, why we are the way that we are. So a sense of community. My dad knows so many people. You can speak multiple languages, and that's something you can take for granted, because we we live in a time, and I don't even want to sound like so deep like that shit. But anyways, my point that I was just trying to put across is I just genuinely like how my dad um, uh, talks about our family and where we come from and what that's all about, and the value of networking with people. Whenever we're in challenges, I remember the last time I took a drive with my dad, we just got a flat tire somewhere in Kwekwe or something, and he had someone on the phone, and they came to help us. And this was pitch black, midnight. People I've never met, but he knew them from networking or from our family friends. So I've always liked that, staying in touch, being very grounded. Um, and for me, I've taken that. Whenever I meet someone, I'm always very curious to know where they're from, because it gives me a little bit of an idea of, it explains a lot of who you are as you're talking to me, as we're engaging. And I guess from there you figure out whether you want to have a relationship with this person. But that's one thing my dad's proud about: our family, where we're from, and our heritage, networking, and I guess connection. I think that's really cool. And I guess the other stuff, right? Being being stand up, right? If you say you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it. Being organized, being honest. You can't cap to my dad. You can't say you can see it a mile away that you're trying to lie. Um, so I think that's really cool. The family thing, and maybe that touches with me quite a lot, because um, I do feel like I pull myself out from everyone else and I'm just doing my own thing. But it's always nice whenever I'm with him. He reminds me of who we are, why we are. Yeah. So I think the value of networking and community.
The sense of pride in who you are.
Exactly, pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, that as well. You must be proud.
Yeah.
As a man, you must be proud of who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, I think those are very important, and I think just something to our audience. That's another way that you can easily learn, is by asking your people how they learned and what they were taught growing up. You'll see there's some gems that you can learn. I mean, just right now I've learned about chasing my goals relentlessly. I've learned to be proud of, where I come from. I've learned to network. I've learned to contribute to the community, and that's why conversations like this are so valuable. And then just moving on to the next question, and I think you will both find this one quite interesting. It's, how do you personally define manhood in today's world, and how does that differ from the traditional definitions passed down through generations? And I think we can start with you, Dominic.
And I was thinking about that today. Um, the difference between now and then. You know what? Fundamentally, I think what it is to be a man back then and until now is still the same thing. I'll give a quick example, right? So a simple one is, a man is a provider, right? The majority provider. Uh, about a couple of, maybe 50 years back, a man could earn a salary to take care of four heads, right? Realistically now, I don't think 80% or so of people can go by that. And I don't even think, well, one salary in a household is enough to take care of four heads right now, right? And not to say that a man should stop being a provider or anything there, and then the woman should also. I mean, they should help each other out, but don't flake away from that. Don't flake away from taking responsibility. Taking responsibility many years back has meant the same thing until now, just in a different context. Maybe the woman is chipping in a little bit, but you need to make the initiative to show that you are trying to take the big, to provide and look out for everyone. And whenever something is happening, you are the go-to. So I don't think what it is to be a man back then is different to what it means to be a man now. Maybe if you think of things such as uh, these are things that I wrote maybe superficially, like how maybe 100 years back being talking about mental health, but it kind of ties into my first point, how fundamentally things have always been the same. So for example, how right now it's okay for a man, to cry, and it's okay for a man to talk about how they feel, but really 100 years long back then it was not okay, and now people say it's accepted, but I genuinely don't think it's really accepted. People open up the space to talk about how you're feeling, but I still feel like there's still that expectation that you're supposed to be Gucci all the time. You're supposed to be good. A man just should be hard and go on. I think there's a time I reached out to you once. I was just like, fuck, I'm going through it. Um, uh, and I feel more comfortable talking to you about it. And I know the space is open, but talking to everyone about it, like they say it's open, it's really not. I don't think it's genuine. So from when we started until when it is who it is to be a man, to provide, to look out for your people, to stand up for what you believe in, um, defend, and all of that, that still remains the same. Maybe just how we put it in, how we allow those characteristics to show themselves now, is the nuance has changed. Yeah, that's the best way of putting it. But what it is fundamentally always been the same and still is the same.
Got you. So essentially, what we're saying here is that the definition of manhood has stayed the same, and obviously traditionally that's to provide and to protect, right? And then we have kind of transitioned into a space where um, a man is allowed to express limited emotion, to your point, to say yes, we sometimes say that it's allowed, but you know it's frowned upon still, etc., etc. So essentially what you're saying is not much has changed since, you know, back then in those older generations and their definition of manhood, but the application of that provision and protection has changed to the context of this generation. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, when you say it, it almost sounds as if it should be. Things have changed, but no, I still stand on, yeah, uh, still firmly the same.
Cool. Thank you. And Nigel, what are your thoughts on your definition of manhood, or rather, what is the definition of manhood to you personally, and how does that differ from the traditional definitions that have been passed down from generation to generation?
Right. Obviously, I think traditionally, being a man was just being a provider, and it ended there. You know. So now, as we've transitioned into like the society we live in now, and more awareness has been raised, it's like being a man is fine. You're providing financially, but you're showing up for your family. You know, you're showing up for your kids emotionally. You're showing up for your kids, like you being there at every stage of the process. That's being a man. So it's shifted from just solely being a financial obligation to being like emotional support. You know, I'm there. Psychological support, I'm there. Like socially, I'm there. You know, being a man is not just financial. You know, yeah. So manhood has you know, it's still fundamentally like what Dominic says. It's still the same. You know, like being a provider. I'm taking initiative. Yeah, but I also feel like it's also now shifted to like being emotionally available, because I think the men back then weren't as emotionally available, because it was just like you're just a provider. So you're not really present in the lives of those that your ecosystem, being your family, right? So now I think it's shifted to that perspective now. Gradually shifting because obviously there's some facets of life where traditional aspects to manhood still exist, you know. But then you see with like socialization, with the level of education, um, there's certain aspects that are changing, and I think men now are just being emotionally available to the ecosystem. Whether your ecosystem is your friends, you're opening up to your friends. Now, when I have a problem, I can be like, "Hey, Gareth, hey, Dom, this is what's going on in my life. You know, can we talk about it?" But could you really do that back then? You know, when you had a problem, you just face it like, you know, on your own. You know, you just raw dog it like on your own. So now it's like I can actually talk to my people, and so it's like so I think we just more emotionally available. Yeah.
And I agree with you 100% because I think the core foundation of being a man by definition, right? I think the traditional still plays a huge part. We still are the providers, we still are the protectors. But additionally, now, back in the day when a man would show his children that he loves them, he would say, "You have food on the table. I've paid for your school fees. You have uniforms. That's how I show I love you." But gone are those days now. The children need more emotional availability and reassurance of this love because the payment of school fees is what you're supposed to do as the father. The provision of food is what you're supposed to do. So now I think on top of the provision as well as the protection, the man is now also supposed to be emotionally available for his family and to be able to showcase that love more than just financial provision or the resources that he goes out of his way to find. He needs to be there for the conversation with his son who's getting bullied. He needs to be there for his daughter who's still figuring things out as she's growing up, and for his family in general and his friends. So I agree. I think in any case, we've just added another layer to what manhood is because of the times we're in. But the core foundation of provision and protection are the basis of who we are as men. And then again, thank you for that addition, guys. Just moving on to the next question.
Hey, can I interject?
Yeah, 100%.
What is manhood for you? What do you think manhood is?
For me, manhood, I still hold on to the traditional definition. I think for you to be called a man, you need to be able to provide and to protect. You need to be able to take on responsibility. We need to be able to trust you with the word that you say, that if you're going to do something, you're going to do it. But additionally, I'm 100% aligned to Nigel that it's now broader. It's no longer that because I love you, I have bought you food. Now the child needs a conversation to say, "I love you," and so rare. Like, not a lot of African children have heard their fathers say, "I love you," something as simple as that. But now within the world that we are in, not only are you supposed to be the provider and protector, but you need to also lead the family emotionally. You need to be able to have conversations with your children and to be present. Back in the day, that wasn't warranted. If the scale that a man was measured on was if his children are eating, if his children are getting educated, etc., etc. But then now we need to be able to say, "Oh, you are actually responsible for a well-rounded individual, an individual that doesn't feel alone, although he has a father," right? So you need to be present emotionally. So I think for me, the only difference between then and now is that there's another layer that's been added, the emotional availability that's a prerequisite for the man. And that obviously means that you need to have some emotional maturity, as a man now, right? Because you need to be able to have uncomfortable conversations with your partner, with your children, with your friends, etc. Whereas back in the day, it was just, no, if I provide for these guys, they're eating, they're sleeping under some shelter, then my job is done. I don't have to speak to these guys. I can just spend the rest of the day at the bar and then go back to my house and sleep, right? There was no connection that was warranted with the person's family. So I think we've evolved to now needing the father to also lead from a perspective of love and emotional availability. So in my opinion, that's how we've changed. And I'm also keen to hear what the viewers have to say about their definition of manhood, because at the end of the day, this is a space for us to learn from each other, for us to see what it is that's missing right now to get to the point we want to get to. And then just moving on to the next, what are the key lessons or support systems that you believe that young men today need to successfully transition into manhood in 2025 and beyond?
That's a good question. I think key lessons or skills rather, or I think the fundamental skill to have for a boy to transition into manhood is discipline. discipline is by far the biggest skill to have because it shapes who you become. Um, as a man, manhood has so many obligations, so many targets, so many issues that come with it, and you just have to be a disciplined individual to navigate through that. And with discipline, you get opportunity. With discipline, you become self-sufficient on your own. With discipline, you have the ability to chase your goals and your targets and reach your dreams. Because as a man, as a provider, you just have to have something going on for yourself, whether it be career-wise, whether it be business-wise. Whatever you're doing, whatever your grind is, requires a high level of discipline. So that's one skill I'd say young boys need to have as they transition into manhood. A support system, I'd say a great network of friends, people that can keep you accountable. You don't need people in your lives that will in your life that will lie to you or won't tell you that you're messing up. People that can actually instill a lot of value in you. People that can actually guide you on the steps to take where you feel stuck, or people that you can actually go to when you need help to do something. So I'd say, your friends and your ecosystem and your connections and your network just needs to enhance you as a person and build you as a person. So that's another community I'd say you need. If you have the ability to get a mentor, that would be great because you need someone to walk the journey of life with you. And mentors are mainly within your career domain, academic. So I'd say those are very pivotal structures to have in your life because they'll then shape who you become. Sometimes it's hard. In man, when you're old, your life as an adult, you don't know how to navigate certain tasks. You have to make certain decisions, and if you don't have that support structure, you sometimes feel like you're drowning. So you need to be able to have people around you that can, you know, instill these values, but also just guide you when you just need some form of advice. So I'd say, yeah, have a mentor, have a good ecosystem, and just have those values of discipline, and yeah, you'd be good.
Thank you for that, Nigel. And then just passing on the question to you, Dominic, what do you feel are the key lessons, skills, or support systems that young men need today to successfully transition into manhood in 2025 and beyond?
First of all, go to the gym. That's just go to the gym. That's the only tool you need. Just go to the gym. Uh, but but maybe just elaborate. I think just go to the gym. There's a bunch of tools there. You're seeing other guys who are doing better than you, looking better than you. See what you can do yourself, but not with those tools. When with your own hands, and look up to people. But it doesn't even need to be a gym. Just join a group of people that are doing something with their lives. Uh, uh, but you know what I'd actually say? No, no. What I'd say is definitely go to the gym. Go to the gym or join some sports club with a group of men. It's nice. It's dope. I can attest to that with just that my hockey team and just going to the gym and the people that you meet. That's I think that's great. But one thing that I think is really dope, I think find something that you want to do, right? Whatever it is that you want to do, and just go and do it, right? So let's say, for example, like me, I want to be a pharmacist. I just after high school, just go look for a pharmacy job. Well, I'm in that space at a workplace, for example. I'm around people I'm around men, older men, and from there you get to learn. But the other thing is, you're around people that align with what it is that you want to do, which goes back to what you said, which I think is so key, is being around people that are aligned with what it is that you're trying to achieve and do, because you feel less alienated. You don't think you're crazy if you're pushing the extra hours or so forth. They understand and they encourage you to push you on. But if you go chill with another group of people that don't see it that way, they'll be like, bro, it's a Saturday, let's just relax, let's take it easy. So I'd say you might not know. There might not be one universal skill that a guy should know, but find it what it is that you want to do, go and do it. In there you will meet other men that you be like, shit, I want to be like him, he's cool, or you learn a useful skill from that person. and it aligns with what it is that you want to do, that particular skill, and it's not just some arbitrary skill. You're actually doing what it is that you want to do. So those two things, um, equip yourself.
Okay, got you. I think those are very, very important points. And I think discipline reigns true in our day to day lives. You have to be disciplined to achieve anything. I would also add onto that, I would add, as a man, one needs to have a sense of perseverance, because what you start to notice is whatever dream or goal you're chasing, more often than not, the people who don't get there is because they quit. You need to have some perseverance to know that you will keep knocking on this door and you will keep pushing, because it's not meant to be easy. So to accompany the discipline, you would need that perseverance. And I almost laughed when you said, go to the gym as one of the lessons that the young men can take beyond to transition into manhood, right? And I actually had the conversation with my dad. I asked him, what lessons would you give? What are the two main things? If you could only tell me two things about becoming a man, what are those two things? And it's like work out and pray. It's like, that's it. It's like, if you work out, you're teaching, you're disciplining your body physically. You're good, you're healthy. And if you pray, you're surrendering to a higher power, whoever you may pray to. But those are the two things that my father shared with me. So I think I'll just add those on there. And in terms of the support systems that I believe the young men need in 2025 and beyond, I feel the availability of mentors, right? Because when you get of a certain age, there's a curiosity that you want to know, right? So we need people like us, when we come of age, we need to be available to these people to say, I can mentor you, I can teach you X, Y, and Z. So those support systems, I think, would definitely help the young boy who's transitioning into manhood, the availability of the mentors. And then in terms of the lessons, I think we exhausted them in terms of the discipline and being able to understand that iron sharpens iron. So being around the famous saying that if you have four motivated or disciplined friends, you'll be the fifth. If you have four lazy and unaccountable friends, you will be the fifth, right? So you will become the people you keep around you. So it's important for you to be intentional about who you keep around as you grow into manhood, because those people are going to be a reflection of you. They're going to be people who hold you accountable. So you need to be intentional about the friends that you keep, or rather the company that you keep. So I think those would just be the other add-ons that I would put onto that. And then just moving on to the next question, which is quite an interesting one, because we've described that the old playbook on masculinity might not be fully applicable in today's world. So, with that being said, the next question is, can you share a moment when you realized you had to unlearn something from your father or male role model to adapt to the modern world?
Oh, that's dope. Can I touch on something from the previous thing?
100%.
I didn't say one skill, but I think people should do. Just go and do. Just, whatever it is that you want to do it, start it. Um, I think it's frustrating when you're around people and they're speaking and they don't do stuff. So just go do stuff. Just do. If you're gonna get anything out of me from that previous question.
Gotcha.
And then in that I had to unlearn. Yeah, recently, um, maybe some context, just like your dads and men that you know around you. My dad works so hard. That man works hard, and he works, he does what he has to do, comes back home, goes on his laptop. At night, he'll leave and he'll go to the farm, do what he has to do at night. Um, but you can tell, not that you can tell, but when he's working so hard, when he's come back home, he's quiet. You can tell maybe he's had a frustrating day. We work, so we know what it's like to be out of work. Back then, when we were children, we didn't understand what that meant. So when you now look back, you can see maybe he was holding in a lot of things. And personally, I've I've done the same. I think just from seeing him, I work extremely hard, um, and I enjoy working extremely hard like he did. But when you work really hard and you just focus on doing one thing, what tends to happen, or what happened to me, anything that's not related with work was not important to me anymore, or received very little priority from me or any of my time. And that affected a lot of relationships, particularly with my girlfriend. And that went sour. That went absolutely south. And in my head, in the moment when I'm working absolutely hard, uh, I didn't communicate, which I guess is the point that I'm trying to get to here, is communicating. And the lack of communicating what it is that I'm going through, and what it is that I'm experiencing, and the challenges that I have. So one thing, the unlearning that I had to do, was just keeping everything to myself, and just carrying on with my normal life, like everything was okay, when it's not, when you're really going through some shit. So communicate when you're not good, um, and you'll be in a much better position. Although I will say, and we had this conversation, and I was going through, like, for example, right now, like, I'm running my business, and cash, of course, comes in when it comes in. Sometimes it doesn't come in, and I was talking to you about how do I have that conversation, like, with my girl, and we just say, let's just talk it out so that she understands. And when I spoke to her about it, and she understood, but although we were good afterwards, I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh shit, maybe she might think like I'm a worse, or I don't want to get my shit together. I'm not doing shit for myself. Um, so, and then it starts getting you to think, maybe sometimes should you hold back into communicating what it is that you're going through, because maybe you're now over communicating, and maybe the person doesn't receive the message well, and you are so vulnerable. um, but I'm trying to learn that. But I can definitely tell that I'm better off when I communicate immediately than holding shit in, and we resolve it, even if it means afterwards it questions, maybe questions the man, the strong guy that I am, and that bites at you. Personally, bites at me when I don't have my shit together. But I'll figure it out. But definitely communicate. When you're not fine, say it. If they don't receive it, well, fuck it. You've done your part. You're not good. You move on from it. Um, uh, I don't know how my dad's actually. I'll probably ask my dad. When you're going through shit, do you not talk to people?
Yeah. So what I'm getting from you is two main things that you had to unlearn, which was, firstly, you had to learn to communicate.
Sure.
And you had to learn to also prioritize your relationships part of the work as well. Because as opposed to just having work as the only thing that matters and everything else is secondary, it's understanding that things are primary at different times. That work is primary when it's time for work, but when it's time to engage with your friends, with your partner, etc., you need to be present. Okay, got it. And then for you, Nigel, what are some of the lessons that you feel you had to unlearn from your father or any male role models that were present in your life in order for you to be able to, adapt to the modern world?
Um, I think similar to Dominic's experience, I'd say I had to unlearn the notion of keeping things in when something is going wrong, because you end up crashing out on your own. You don't know how to navigate your feelings and navigate your emotions. So I found that being difficult in my adult life when I went through obstacles. I didn't know how to channel my emotions because of how I was conditioned. Growing up, you're being told that as a man, you can't really express how you feel, or you can't really cry, or you can't, even till today, I don't know how to cry, because that's how you've been conditioned, right? So obviously now it's obviously shifted to a perspective where I now prioritize communicating when I'm not okay with something, or when I'm not okay myself, because that's how I just it makes it better when you're communicating with people, because it actually makes you a better version of yourself. because now you're not crashing out on the next person, or you're not shifting these negative emotions into your work, into your, I don't know, into like your ecosystem, different stakeholders. I just believe that communicating how you feel, whether it's with your friends or maybe even with a therapist, you basically becoming the best version of yourself for the people around you. Because now because sometimes people actually question why they act the way they do because they don't understand. But maybe it's because it's those unanswered or unchanneled, like those emotions within you that have nowhere to go, that are making you act a certain type of way. So that's one thing I've decided to unlearn in my adult life. I process my emotions. I run when I don't feel grand as well. I run a lot. So sometimes when I have a long day, I can just jog 5Ks and I come back feeling good because, that's my version of processing my emotions sometimes as well. So just finding different coping mechanisms and realizing that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. So yeah, that's how I've handled life.
I like that. And I think you mentioned something that in the past used to be a taboo. You mentioned the therapist, right? But I'm very happy that we've moved into a space now in the times that we find ourselves where men can openly speak about therapy and they can openly speak about not being okay, and actually having a brother recommend a therapist to you or recommend that you speak to somebody, and be able to be vulnerable in those moments. And also to your point, Dominic, about balancing the vulnerability, because I know what you mean, that as a man you kind of feel like, no, why was I so open, why was I so vulnerable with my partner or my friend or etc. But I think also to your point, what's important is the communication part, because that will make you feel better. How that is received, you have no control over that, right? But it's the act of communicating with someone so that they can understand that this is the space that you're currently in. And just to add on some of the things that I had to unlearn, right? And as we mentioned, as men, we normally learn by observing. When I was growing up, right, at home, mom was in charge of the household. Mom would cook, mom would do everything, right? And I feel like we are getting into the age whereby we have women that are also going to work from 9 to 5. They're getting back home at the same time as us. So now the expectation to say every single day this person has to have the household on their back, I think that's something that I am quite aware and conscious that I will have to unlearn as I move forward, because it's a bit unrealistic for that to happen, right? For us to place the whole household on the shoulders of the woman. I think as men, we also have to absorb some of those responsibilities, and willingly so that the household can function better, because at the end of the day, this is a partnership, right? So that's something that personally I feel that in the future I'm gonna unlearn. I anticipate that. And then
Yeah, no. Conversations, as you're talking, when you and I were just talking, um, a lot of like the conversation we're having right now, we speak out about how men are not okay, we're going through shit, and even in that space, it opens up space for men to go on and speak about what it is you're going through and to get an ear. Um, this might be a bit this, but what I think, right? You're going through what makes you a man, right? Is okay. You've said what you're going through, right? You've put it out there. Okay, but then what are you going to do about it? So I think what we should also try and do maybe in this conversation is we've acknowledged. I think a lot of the time we're acknowledging that emotionally we're now speaking out, that it's now okay for us to speak when we're not okay, right? Speak about it. Yeah, I'm not okay. I'm feeling a bit of anxiety, A, B, C, D. But when try coming to a period whereby you be like, look, I need to do something about it, and not dwell too much on what it is it's going through. And I understand people go through a lot of shit, different shit, and for some people it's very severe. But then what makes you like a man, like a G, like fuck it. Like, hey, I'm really going through this, but what am I going to do? I mean, let me try, for example, let me try going to the gym. Let's see. That's an attempt to solve your problem. Or let me go, like you said, let me go see a therapist. What we don't want to do here is have conversation like, yeah, it's okay for men to speak out, but not follow through by saying speak out, but then go and make a plan. The unfortunate, maybe fortunate part about being a man is you gotta get it. It needs to get done. You gotta action it, and it's usually those people that just lay around and not do much that struggle the most. So for anyone that's watching, you're going through it, but come to a stage whereby you be like, look, I need to make a plan, and then try it. And it's obviously not the solution, right? But the fact that you made an attempt to solving your mental issue or your man issue that you're going through is what's important. Again, do.
Be solution driven.
A man should be a doer, bro.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I think it's fair and fine to have venting sessions, right?
Yeah.
But then that's when the brotherhood is important, to have someone to speak to.
Sure.
But then now the onus is on you to find a solution. Because yes, we've spoken about this, but then so what? What's going to happen next? You have this problem. How are we going to tackle this, right? So we always need to be solution driven in our approach. Yes, we're very happy that we now have spaces to communicate and to speak out and express ourselves. But let's use that to our advantage to find solutions to better ourselves from these conversations.
you're not devil's advocate. There will be other people who will say they've tried all the solutions. I'm asking this because I don't know. By the way, they've tried everything and they've done what I said, right? Solution, 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 and they've reached a brick wall and they feel like there's nowhere else to go. What do you think happens then?
I don't believe that there's such a thing as a problem that doesn't have a solution. I think there's always a solution, and I think if you're open to the fact that it's not yet time for the solution to reach you, now the question comes: what are you doing while you wait? While you're waiting to solve that problem. So that waiting period is normally where a lot of men get caught up in their own heads. They get depressed while they're waiting. They let themselves go. So while you're waiting, you need to still be pursuing the good traits of a man. You need to be going to the gym, making sure you're healthy. You need to be making sure that you're checking in with your brothers, or your brotherhood, to make sure that you're accountable still to the goals that you have. Because just having that one problem, we shouldn't act like that one problem is going to cripple you to live life, right? That obviously it's subjective to what the problem actually is, but I feel you are still able to make sure you're adding value to your life and to your community while you're still waiting to find that solution. So I think maybe the solution might be even in that journey of trying to better yourself, right? So I don't think there's ever a point where you get to a brick wall and you feel like everything is doom and gloom. Obviously that's subject to the problem. Maybe the problem is loss. Maybe you've just lost someone in your life, right?
Sure.
And that's something we're all going to have to experience if we haven't experienced it. Obviously you need to go through the grieving process, etc., etc. But while you wait to heal, what are you doing during that time? So I think that's the $1,000,000 question, to say, while we're waiting for that solution to come, what are we up to? Are we just in bed, depressed, and just having negative thoughts to the next day? Has that consumed us? Has the problem consumed us to the point where we feel life is not worth living, or where we feel we can't carry on? That's why I say it's subjective to what the problem actually is. But I'm one who believes every problem has a solution, and it will come to you, when the time is right. But while you wait, what are you up to, Did you want to add anything on that, Nigel?
I think you touched on everything, bro.
Okay, perfect. And I think we've touched a lot on the role of the father and the role of the presence of the male mentor within the lives of these boys and young men, right? But now, what do we say? What advice would we give to the young men who didn't have a strong male figure growing up, right? What advice would we give those people who had no presence at all of a strong male figure there? There was no father in the household. There was no uncle in the household that, this boy could lean on for guidance into his passage or his transition into manhood. What sort of advice would you give that listener who's at home, who's saying, okay, I hear everything that you guys are saying, but you guys are only addressing the guys who had fathers. You haven't spoken about the guys who didn't have any strong male figure. What advice do you reckon we should give those types of people?
I guess firstly, it's letting them know that it's not their fault that they don't have male figures in their lives. Or it's not their fault that things turned out the way they did. I guess through that they get that assurance that life is. I can still do life even though I don't have a father figure in my life. But what I would also tell a young man in that position that doesn't have a father figure is just need to be proactive about life and proactive about the connections you establish in life. I guess it's more like interacting with older male figures that are in your life, maybe your family members, maybe your cousins, because a male figure can also be your cousin. Your older cousin can also groom you and teach you to our life. Is maybe reaching out to people that are around you already within the family structure or even the community to see, what lessons can I get from this person, or what kind of value can I obtain from this person, So it's like the fact that you don't have a father in your life or a father figure in your life doesn't mean that there's no one out there that's there to help you. There's so many people within the community that can extend help or extend lessons, or that are willing to extend lessons as well, And it's just a matter of you familiarizing yourself and socializing and just making sure that you do everything from your part to establish these connections and see what works for you as well, And it's a complicated one because telling a young man who doesn't have a father, it's like they might feel lost, They might feel lost. They might feel like they don't have a space in society, but it's just consistently reaffirming, and consistently telling them that it's okay and there's people to help, and you also need to do your part as a person, as to just build yourself, and the realization that you can do it on your own too, but there's people to help you, whilst there's people to help you, but you can also add on to that by doing your part. Just, I don't know if I'm making sense, but
it does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think you touched on, to the effect of the young man who grew up without a father to actively seek people who can advise, actively seek, for lack of a better term, for mentorship, right? And I remember with Dominic, we were speaking about the fact that he himself has, searched for mentors, countless times to no avail. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can give Dominic and our viewers to say, when you are looking for a mentor, this is how you approach it? Are you able to give a breakdown of how you approach finding a mentor in your own life, or how you've gone about that?
Please.
I guess when it comes to mentorship, it's more like, in my experience, I didn't have to actively seek for a mentor in that place. I think because of the line of work I was in, I found someone who was more senior, and we just worked together. But this was through a link. I didn't actively seek, but then. I'd say in general, on the grand scheme of things, if you're trying to find a mentor, it's like firstly identifying what it is you want to learn, what it is you want to achieve, and and seeing how best to navigate. Whether it's a professional mentor, what professional resources are available. Could it be from shooting my shot on LinkedIn to a established corporate individual to be like, okay, I'm interested in your line of work. Do you mind discussing further? To see whether we can build a relationship from that, or whether this person is willing. So it's also like a vetting process, because you are obviously going to be in communication with a wide array of people. are they willing on their parts to mentor you? That's a very big question as well. And from what you see through your interactions, are they the right candidate for you? Hence, I'm saying you need to identify what it is that you want for yourself first before you actively go out there to seek those same qualities in other people. So it's very hard to find a mentor. It's very hard to find the right person. Some people have been very unsuccessful in those endeavors as well. So, sometimes where intention and hard work align, that's when you can, find a mentor. But it's complicated. But
And just to add on to that, hey Nigel, is I was having a discussion with someone who later became my mentor, someone I respect a lot, and he said to me, we're just speaking about. He was telling me it's time I find a mentee, right? And I was like, yo, I'm not ready, But he was just telling me that when someone decides to look for a mentor, you need to be able to adequately describe what the ask is. So you reach out to, let's say you reach out to some guy named Kevin that you want to be your mentor. Kevin is obviously going to say, okay, this person sent me a message saying he wants me to be his mentor, but he hasn't told me what the ask is. Does that look like 30 minutes on a Sunday discussion? What does that look like? Does that look like him being accountable to me for his goals? So if you're able to describe to your mentor, to say, you shoot that person a text to say, hi, Kevin, my name is Dominic, and I'm currently in this line of work, and I feel like you can add onto my journey, and I'm looking for someone I can be accountable to. This will only look like a call once every month for 30 minutes where we discuss my goals. Currently, my goals are X, Y, and Z. And I feel like if I had somebody to be accountable to with your experience, my journey will be better. That way, when this person reads that message, they're like, okay, this is someone who knows what they want. They know what the ask is. Because plain and simple, if someone just says, can you be my mentor? That person will be like, okay, what are they asking me for really? What do they need from me? What does this mentorship entail? So I think when we reach out as young men to find mentors, if we are very descriptive in what the ask is, it becomes so much easier for that person to give us a thumbs up. So I think that can probably help in the search for the mentor and everything.
What's like, I'm not being dumb or anything, but what's a mentor? What is and I'll explain to you what I'm asking. What is a mentor?
A guide. For me, a mentor is a guide. A mentor is someone who has been able to master a craft that you want to master. So that person is there to guide you to get to that destination that you find. So a mentor is someone who is at a position that you aspire to be at, in different aspects of life. Maybe this is somebody who is mentoring you physically, is your gym coach. That's your mentor who tells you, make sure you eat this, make sure you do this. And you're going to listen to him because you can see, okay, this guy's ripped. This guy really knows what he's talking about, right? So for me, when I think of mentorship, I think of someone who's guiding, Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
No, like I said earlier, I've never had like a single guy or mentor person that I'm just like, hey yo, what does if you want to do something and your mentor doesn't agree because they've done something similar, what do? Do you follow your mentor?
So for me, how I think about books and I think about people is that I can learn from their mistakes, right? When I read a book about an entrepreneur, about a businessman, and I read that, okay, this guy made this mistake, that means I don't have to make that same mistake. It's kind of like, as I said, as the guide who's seen what the journey is like, right? And as you know, to be young sometimes means to be overly confident in your own abilities. So that means sometimes we don't want to listen to that advice. Fair and fine, my mentor might say, don't use this strategy. And I might argue the case that this strategy didn't work in your time because people didn't find this necessary, but now in modern times they do, right? At the end of the day, I still have the decision-making power because it's my life. but this person is there to guide me to get there quicker and to get there with less bruises and to get there less injured than I would have on my own. So that's why his voice is necessary to tell me, I don't think you should be doing that. At least that also gets me thinking to say, why am I doing that? If I can justify to him in a conversation, then I can also justify to myself. Then I take that decision, you know. So, but always keeping a wide eye on what the advice is, because I mean, you selected the mentor because you saw something in him, right? So always keeping that in mind, that this is someone who wants the best out of you, so they wouldn't lead you astray. So that's how I would take it.
Um, mm, so I was obviously asking because I was saying I've never had any. But as I'm hearing both of you speak, for me, I think the mentors have actually just been individual people who helped me. I respect them and I ask them for certain things of that aspect of my life. So I don't probably because I've never had a mentor, but I'm now starting to think about it.
Because it was never formalized.
Not even that, it was not formalized, because maybe I did try reach out to look for mentorship, but then you can see that this person is busy and is not trying to talk to you. But what I'm trying to get to is those things that you guys are your mentors are giving you. I can see it through my friends, through accounting to my friends. When I need some business advice, and I can ask some business person who I look up to and get an opinion from them. And the reason why I asked you, do you disagree with them? Because I was in a situation where there were like three three business people I really look up to, and I asked them for advice. I was like, look, I want to quit my job and do my business full time. What do you think I should do? And I laid them out a bunch of options, and the option that they chose was the safer bet. Like the typical response would be, yeah, you can do both at the same time. And of course, I didn't listen to them. I obviously did my own thing. So maybe, hence I ask, because do you always have to listen to your mentor? But also, just I guess to answer me, a mentor doesn't necessarily have to be one figure. It can even just be your friend.
Gotcha. And then just also passing that question on to you, if there's anything else you want to that we might not have touched on, in terms of what advice would you give young men who didn't have a strong male figure growing up?
Yeah, I guess maybe I can't answer. I'm not in the. I've never not had a father, so I'm not sure I can answer that question. But there's a lot of guys with fatherless behavior. They've got dads and they do some absurd shit. So what not directly to the person without a male figure, um, but that's a situation, right? That's a problem. What I was take ownership of that problem. Um, one Once you take ownership of the problem, you're now in full control of the direction that you go to. And I don't want to sound like a dickhead by saying there's this quote that I live by, that life happens because of you and not to you. Everything that happens to you is because of your hand. And I'm not saying that because you've lost your dad or anything, but I'm talking particularly with ownership. People with or without fathers. Um, Take ownership, be in full control of everything that's happening to you, and move forward. If you have a bad day, you made a mistake, take on that responsibility. Don't ever think it rained or and now you can't go and do something, and that's not your fault. Yeah, that's something that's completely out of your control, but maybe think, or maybe I could have done something differently. But anyway, what I'm just trying to get to this is full ownership. Every single man, both with or without fathers, fatherless behavior, guys. That's a situation. You don't have a male figure. Take ownership and do what you have to do with that situation so that you can become the individual, I guess we're trying to describe here, who's got a good father or a good role model. So take ownership of the situation, and not people who don't have male role models, just to anyone, even those with fatherless behavior. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think You both touched on important factors. The first being obviously to take ownership of the situation that you find yourself in, and then to your point, Nigel, just being able to heal because it's not your fault that you don't have a father. And I think that's an important step that, the young men who don't have fathers need to take, acknowledging that I don't have a father and it's not my fault, and healing from that. And just to build on what you guys have mentioned, I think you also have to educate yourself. So there's tons of literature that's out there in terms of how to better yourself, become a better version of yourself as a man. You can find various podcasts, much like this one, where you can find out what it means to be a man. And you also get an opportunity to define what manhood means to you, not let all the stereotypes just seep into your life. You can define what that means. You can define that on good morals. You can define that on being strong for the people that you love and being a leader that's also willing to serve. So you have a unique opportunity there as well, because unlike the other people who grew up with fathers and were dictated what being a man is, you have an opportunity to define that for yourself and to be the man that you needed when you didn't have a father. So that's something that you can also do. And also, just to reiterate Nigel's point in actively seeking mentorship, because there's people within the community that you can reach out to and tell them your situation, and I'm sure they'll be willing to help. And then now, just wrapping up, to the both of you, something that's also been on my mind is, yes, we've had this discussion and we've defined what all these different aspects of being a boy and transitioning into manhood mean. But now the next question, or the next step that the audience will be asking themselves, is how can men today actively support and uplift each other in their journey of becoming well-rounded individuals? What is currently missing that men can do to actively support and lift each other on their journeys? I don't know if we can start with you, Nigel.
I think just actively supporting would be just creating spaces where we can just talk about the issues that we face as men, amongst us as friends, as peers. I think that's a very important aspect in regards to support, because what one person might know on how to navigate manhood, another person might not know. So it's just that idea generation and sharing ideas together, that helps a lot as well. And just also empowering and just providing, advice to the men below us. I guess taking that leadership role in whatever space you're in, being a teacher, being a guide, and us actively taking a leadership role in the spaces that we're in. Being a teacher. So like in my content, I read a quote that once said that be the teacher that you never had growing up. So whatever space you're in, just be a leader to other men, instill value wherever you go, because there might be some lost individual out there that whatever advice you have to say will save them. Whatever advice you have to give will build them and empower them. So I guess just taking that active role as men, knowing that we are just empowering and supporting each other in the spaces that we're in, and building an ecosystem where ideas are being shared and growth is being derived. I believe those are very vital tools. And just being the big bro, essentially.
I like that. 100%. And for yourself, Dom, what do you feel men can do today to actively support and uplift each other on their journey of becoming well-rounded individuals?
I pride myself in doing things and people seeing that I did it. I'll speak when I need to speak, or encourage when I need to encourage. But I'm not going to go out there and try and move people to do something different. I'd hope people, I guess that's what I'm doing, writing a story for myself that is beautiful, but is also beautiful for other people to see as well, and learn from that. I can't really say what I do for other men to become better. I've
So
got
basically what you're saying is to be a good example is the contribution.
if you simply put it like that, yeah, to be a good example in the community, to stand up for something, and but doing something, and allowing people to see your fruits grow. That's all I'm about. My leadership will be shown through the people that I worked with to bear those fruits. And it's as far as that. And with that little contribution that I have before I leave, is is yeah, you see what I did, then go off and learn from that and do even better. If I can do it, then why can't you? That will definitely be my contribution to men. I think I'm very frustrated that people don't want to take action. People don't want to stand up for something, because people behind screens can cancel you that you'll never meet. And I wish I want to build myself to becoming that person, so that people can see, yeah, maybe I might have done some things that people might not like, but you can tell that I believe in myself and I believe in whatever it is that I was doing. And then you can then be like, no, man, even this guy might have said things that are not popular, but I can do that as well. I don't feel what these guys are feeling or what they're saying, and that's okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. And I think um, first and foremost, as we've spoken about, the learning with observing. So I think you're leaning more into that of being a good example that your community can observe, and that's how you will uplift and help guide the next man, right? And I also lean very heavily onto what you said, Nigel, in terms of men taking an active role in whatever space you might find yourself in. Maybe it's at work and you see there's some gent who's struggling with something, just being able to have the conversation to say, yo, what's wrong? What's going on? And actively being present in these spaces. It doesn't have to be overtly going out of our way, to be a superhero, but it's in these spaces. Maybe it's in your place of work, maybe it's in the household, or maybe it's in church, or whatever the case may be. Just being able to put up your hand and say, look, I can help with this. I know what this brother's going through. I've been in this boat before, so I can speak to this person. I think that's definitely something that can help uplift the next person and to support the next person. And just also being able to have platforms and discussions much like this, where people are actually debating and discussing some of the things that they're facing, some of the transitions that they're facing, and some of the things that they don't agree with. It's important for us to continuously have these ideas flowing through us, because that's how we find solutions. And and I think it's important for us to be intentional about helping the next person and being able to recognize that, oh, okay, when I was growing up, I didn't have anyone to speak to about this. Maybe I can provide that for the next person, right? And yeah, I just want to say thank you again to the both of you for, making time to have this discussion with us. And essentially, that brings us to the end of our very first episode of Forefathers. I want to give a huge thank you to my guests for joining me today, for sharing their experiences, and for shedding light on some really important issues. These conversations are obviously very necessary, and I appreciate you both for being open and real with us. And to everyone watching from or listening from home, thank you for being part of this journey. Your support means everything to us, and this is just the beginning. If you've found value in today's discussions, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future episodes. And of course, drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts, your experiences, and what topics you'd like us to cover next. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and let's redefine what it means to be a man in today's world. See you soon.